church. It's in the center of Amsterdam's Douala red light district. In front of the Oudekerk is the Bell statue. This was installed in 2007 to honor the sex workers in the red light district. On the left, you'll see there's part of the information center that was created, the Prostitution Information Center. They do offer tours and they help do things to kind of advocate and protect for the sex workers. They're the ones who installed the statue. And you have a lot of things where you see where they talk about respecting their sex workers. One of the things you can't really do in the red light district in front of red light, the windows, is you cannot take pictures of people there. They prohibit that. That's looked on poorly, so out of respect. This is the Red Light Secrets Museum of Prostitution. This museum was set up a few years ago to kind of in a formal brothel to give an example of what it looks like to experience the red light district and what women in the red light district have experienced, and to give a better sense. And since we can't take pictures of the actual red light windows, this gives you a good sense and shows a lot of facts about it. So this is the first ever prostitution museum. You get to step into, as it said, the intriguing world, look behind the scenes. And as you can see, you get to visit a brothel in its original state. Once there was actually, unfortunately, someone murdered there, a crime they had never solved. You get to visit rooms, see the stories, and get a good sense on how prostitution works in the red light district. And along the way there, they have lots of interesting questions and facts, and I've put a sample of them to kind of answer some questions, like how many visitors does the red light district track per year? They don't have an exact number, but there's about non-COVID years, 6 million visitors, and an estimated 60% pass through the red light district. It's estimated 2,000 men visit a sex worker in the red light district alone, and to work as a sex worker or prostitute, you have to be over the age of 21. You have to have a legal European passport or green card if you're not a citizen of the Netherlands. You also have to register with the Dutch Chamber of Commerce and, of course, rent a window. Yes, sex workers in the Netherlands are considered self-employed and they pay taxes, and they have to rely on their own income and not on social insurance from the government. The reason for the red lights that they noted in the museum is it makes the skin look more smooth, making sex workers look more attractive. In the past, it was also used to obscure marks of sexually transmitted disease. Amsterdam has 15 legal brothels. Those are separate than the red light, the windows. The important difference between a window and a brothel is customers pay a fixed price at the window. Therefore, they try to keep the sessions, the sex workers try to keep the sessions as short as possible, and customers in a brothel pay per hour. These were some tips that they actually posted for examples of how someone could become a successful prostitute from that had been shared. So I'll just get a chance to look, but things like posture, cheerful, smiling. And what does the government do to counteract illegal prostitution? They do investigate working conditions, and if a customer suspects someone's being forced into that, they can report that, or they have an obligation to report it. And the Dutch government has not introduced any quality label because it doesn't believe it's appropriate to be able to do that and able to assess. Also common in the in Netherlands, and particularly around the red light district, cannabis is a kind of quasi-legal. It's legal in certain ways and not legal in other ways, but very much tolerated. There are coffee shops there that get regulated. They're allowed to sell them in the coffee shops. So this is an example of some cannabis that was edibly sold. Interesting thing, random fact, Doritos, if you know Cool Ranch flavor, in the Netherlands is listed as Cool American flavor. So just thought that was an interesting tidbit to share while we're here. Now going on to The Hague with Candace.
Thank you, Brian. Welcome to the city of The Hague. This city is located within 1 hour from Amsterdam, and you can travel there via direct train from the central station. Now, this city is a little quirky and fun, and it is similar to Amsterdam, as The Hague is incredibly diverse with numerous nationalities, and this is because it is known as the government city. You may think that because it is the government city, that it would be modern and not interesting to visit. However, The Hague is a fascinating city and it's one of Netherlands' most historic cities, which is a which has a rich collection of historical buildings, some dating back amazingly to the 13th century. Next slide. Next, please. Okay. So the first stop we will make is at the Peace Palace. Go back one. Okay, thank you. The first stop we will make is at the Peace Palace, which is one of the most stunning buildings in The Hague. It is a symbol of the progress along the years and the current hard work in achieving world peace and preserving it. Today, the building houses the International Court of Justice and the Permanent Court. You can always view the palace from its exterior, but also you can arrange if you're interested in visiting as a private individual. The tours are very knowledgeable and give a great insight about the history of the building. Next, please. Okay. Our next stop is the Lohman Museum, and it is the home to the world's oldest private collection of motor cars, compiled by two generations of the Lohman family. This museum dates back to 1934 and has over 250 antique classic motor cars. This collection is known for being one of the most beautiful in the world. Let's have a look at the video, as you can see. All right, next slide, please. One more. One more, Brian. Yes, thank you. Our last stop, but certainly not the least, is Rizardal, and this is one of the oldest buildings in The Hague and is known as the Hall of Knights. The Rizardal was originally built as a manorial hall in the 13th century. After serving many purposes, it is now the political heart of the Netherlands. Today, the Houses of Parliament meet in its surrounding buildings, which together makes the bin in of. Sorry. One interesting fact, the Prime Minister occasionally can be seen commuting to work via his bike, so make sure if you go to have your camera ready to capture a picture with him. I'll now turn it over to Mercury, who will take you on a tour of Rotterdam.
Okay, so Rotterdam, the second largest city in the Netherlands, is located in the southern Netherlands with a total population of about almost 1 million. And Rotterdam has been the largest port in Europe for a long time. In terms of container traffic, it was the largest port in the world in the 1880s, ranked 85th in the global top 500 cities in 2019. Next, please. So, when you step into Rotterdam's, its urban construction style is unique and most Western European style, rich in color. And in the old city, Many streets are plied with stone, containing the steel of hundreds of years ago. There are many rivers in the city also, and there are all kinds of boats moored by the river, so the transportation is very convenient. Next, please. And so there are buses, subways, and boats. The biggest feature is that there are colorful flowers on the windows of the registered floor. So this is a really a garden city. Next, please. Rotterdam is also famous tourist city, and there are many museums, galleries, parks, libraries, and concert halls. And the people's life not only has a strong cultural atmosphere, but also can make full of the leisure times to seek the fun of life. Next, please. Rotterdam port area is the main part of the city, and it's covering more than 100 square kilometers. The port is not affected by wind and waves throughout the year and can bridge more than 500,000 tons of super tankers. The port of Rotterdam faces many sea areas, so it's priced as the winner of the Europe. Obviously, the people who come to Netherlands not only like to see windmills and flowers, but also like to visit industrial bases. So Rotterdam is the first city in the Netherlands to set up an industrial tourism fund, and which was established as early as 1997 to develop industrial tourism. And they cooperated with local government and enterprises to receive industrial tourism. So in April 2020, Rotterdam was selected into the 2020 list of world famous summer cities. Okay, thank you.
So now we have arrived at Utrecht. This city was founded in 1122, and shortly after, the city council was founded in 1304. It's known for being a college town and for the medieval structures that they have. Next slide, please. So as you can see, that's someone on their bike entering Utrecht. Next slide. So our first stop is going to be the Dome Tower. It's known for being the tallest church tower in the Netherlands. You can actually climb the tower. It has 465 steps. So if you can get through that, you can go up. But don't worry, in between, your tour guide will have breaks and explain everything there is to see. The main points of interest are the huge bells in the ringing tower, in the ringing attic, and the view when you finally make it to the top. It's the best view that you can get in Utrecht. And since 1979, 32,000 kilograms of bronze were manually set into motion using ropes. And it's still presently being done today. So that's something to watch for. And they hold events such as weddings, corporate events, meetings, and dinners there. Next stop. Okay, so the next stop is Luthersenplassen. I know I completely butchered that name, but as you can see, it's a very beautiful place. It's known for the water sports, as well as when it's winter time, you can actually go ice skating, and actually was originally a peat bog, and it wasn't good for farming, so they actually turned it and dug and turned it into canals. And now you can enjoy the outdoors since it's a nature preserve. You can rent a boat, you can rent a bike, as well as go on a dinner cruise. Next slide. Our third stop is Memphis traffic light. So Memphis is actually the translation from Dutch. It's the English way of saying it. It's a character that is known to all children all over the world. It was created by Dick Bruna, and now he's one of the most famous people from Utrecht. The White Rabbit has a bunch of things dedicated to it, such as the traffic light, Memphis Square, as well as Memphis Museum. And what makes this place so special is the traffic light is the world's first permanent rainbow-colored zebra crossing, and it symbolizes diversity and solidarity, which are two concepts that are very true to Utrecht that really represent it. Next. And our final stop in Utrecht is Castle de Heer. It's the largest castle in the Netherlands. And in 1391, the family de Heer was granted the rights, and then it changed hands to the Van Zullen family in 1440. For over a century, it has been a tradition for these families to stay there 1 month out of the year and host extravagant parties for international guests such as Coco Chanel and Saint Laurent. Second slide, please. Next. So as you could see, it has a bunch of gardens surrounding it. The parks and gardens surrounding it cover over 135 acres. That includes the Rose Garden, the Roman Garden, as well as ponds and canals where you can have a romantic picnic or just enjoy the scenery. Next slide. So every season to the park is unique. And as you can see, this is an example of the Rose Garden, and it's really reminiscent of the French Garden of Versailles. Next. This is the picture of the interior. This is actually the main hall, and the architect Pierre designed it to have 200 rooms and 30 bathrooms. I don't know why you would need so many bathrooms, but yes, there's 30. It's ornamented with wood carvings along with old Flemish tapestries and paintings. Next. This is the kitchen, and what it's known for is that it's very modern for its time. It also has a big collection of copper pans as well as pots, and it's very, very pretty. Next. And this is just an example of the bathroom, the extravagant bathrooms that are really modern for its time as well. Next. And the last thing is the Elf Fantasy Fair, which is held in April. It brings in 22,500 visitors every year. It's the largest fantasy event in Europe, and the themes include fantasy, science fiction, gothic, manga, cosplay, and historical reenactment. So it really brings in a diverse group of people, and it's a great place to stop at. Our next stop is gonna be Johan, and he's gonna do Geethorn.
Okay, thank you. And next city is Gisors. It is located in the De Wied Natural Reserve, province of Leisure in the northwest of the Netherlands. And Gisors has more than 700 years history. Every family in here lives by the river. The village has no roads that can pass by cars, only bicycles and boats. It is similar to the Italy water city Venice, so some people compare it to the Dutch Venice. Next, please. And so how can we get to this village? Gisors is only about 2 hours from Amsterdam Central train station. We can take the train from Amsterdam Central Station and get off at Steenwijk Station, and then we transfer to the bus number 17 to the Gisors station. In this way, we can arrive at the very beautiful and peaceful village Gisors. Next, please. In the village, the museum Gisors Audimat Yacht is a very popular attraction. You can learn some interesting history about the Gisors in the museum. The name of Gisors was from a story. The story goes that its original farmer settlers discovered a collection of horns belonging to white goats thought to have died in the flood of 1117, and the goat horn was shortened to the Gisors and the name stuck. And also in the village, it has poor soil and peat bogs. Many of plants do not grow well, and its only resource is underground pits. In order to dig out more peat blocks and sell for money, the residents keep digging the land, forming a series for narrow ditches. Later, in order to make it possible for ships to pass and transport goods, the residents widened the ditches, forming today's beautiful landscape and canals and lakes. And also the roofs of the houses here are all walled with reeds, which are more durable than any other building material with more than 14 years service life. The interesting thing is that in the past, reeds were used as substitutes for bricks and tiles by poor families who cannot afford them. Now reeds are the building material that rich families can afford to buy, and the price is dozens of times that of bricks and tiles. Next, please. And there are 3 ways to visit this beautiful village. You can choose to book a tour if you're joining a canoe cruise. The local partner will be able to guide you through the place and show you the most important places in this quiet village. Renting a bike is also a good way. Footpaths beside the canals are ideal for walking and cycling, and there is a wide selection of cafes and restaurants. But in my opinion, the best way to explore Gittor and the myriad of canals is obviously by booking a boat. Jisoo is at the center of larger canal system. Indeed, the little village is so dependent on its waterways. Boating has been a popular tourist attraction here for years. You can easily rent a boat here. If you get a boat, you can turn down a side street and drive on the wooden bridge. And you also can gently gliding along some canals past old but pretty thatched roof farmer houses. Anyway, the boat trip will make you really enjoy the village. Okay, next, welcome to the Lily to introduce the transportation of Netherlands.
Hi everyone, now I'm going to present the transportation in Amsterdam. When you arrive at the airport, you can take the train from the airport to Amsterdam Central Station. The one-way fare is 4.5 euro, and you can get there in less than 20 minutes. Next, please. And here are two applications about the Dutch transportation. The first application is called NS. The official app of the Dutch National Railway is recommended for anyone planning to explore outside Amsterdam. It provides up-to-the-minute information on departure times, suggested routes, prices, and even disruptions in service. Another app is called 9292. This handy app helps you find your way around Amsterdam and beyond, providing public transport advice for the whole of the Netherlands, including all major public transport operators and the National Railway Network. Next, please. And of course, you can choose the most local transportation way to start your trip in Amsterdam, the bicycle. So here are two routes I recommend for the travelers to get. The first one is Green Route. It's a forest ride. Amsterdam has plenty of large green spaces and beautiful scenic routes to take your bike. If you are looking for a peaceful ride in Amsterdam, get closer to nature with this refreshing cycle route for outdoor lovers. Big forests and vast parks lend themselves well to cycling, so get yourself to Amsterdam both on the edge of the city. Both means forest in Dutch, and this urban forest is simply stunning. Glistening lakes, long narrow cycle paths, and plenty of tall evergreens for your backdrop. So hop on two wheels and get lost beneath the trees. Next, please. And this route called Purple Route is an urban tour of sights and canals. Tour the city of Amsterdam by bike. On this urban route, pass some of Amsterdam's most famous sites and canals in the heart of the city. Get a tree view of the city. Cycle alongside the canals and make stops on the way. Explore Amsterdam's most famous district, Jordan, and circle through the nice street. Go past the Anne Frank house and stop for lunch at the city's coolest market, Airborne Cool Market. This road is full of fun and a pretty cool tour of Amsterdam sights. Next, welcome my partner, Brian.
Yes, so I'm already going to butcher this name, Zaanstad is known for its windmills. It's slightly north, but only like about a half hour north of Amsterdam. And I visited here 2 years ago. This is an actual picture I took of the windmills. This windmill that we're showing here and we're featuring is called De Cat. It is the world's only remaining paint mill or color mill, which is a windmill that makes paint. As you can see in the description, it was built in 1782, and it harnessed the power of the wind to grind a variety of natural dyes and pigments. The stones grind chalk and other things. And you'll see in a moment a little video that kind of demonstrates this. The mill is owned by the Mill Association, and it's leased to the Descartes Traders Painting Company. It is a working mill, still working remaining paint mill. It costs €5 to visit. You get a little ticket, as you see on the left, and you get to go inside the windmill. This is an example of, you see some of the stones, chalks that will be grinded down, and then some of the finished products where you get many different colors from. And now we were going to show a little video. So that was a tour of the working windmill, and inside Descartes. Next, Christina.
Next, we're going to have Dana present Dutch pastries and desserts. So I'm passing it on to Dana.
Goedemorgen iedereen. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dana Soekdosing, and I'm actually a student in this class. But for today, I am also a speaker, as this wonderful team has asked me to share some of my knowledge with you all. So a little bit about myself first. I'm a pastry chef, and I'm originally from Suriname. Suriname is a country in South America which used to be a colony of the Netherlands. Though we are now independent, we still have a lot of Dutch influence on our food and on our culture. Therefore, our first language is still Dutch, and much of our food, including our pastry, which I will be talking to you about today, is very similar, if not the same, to that of the Netherlands. So today I'm going to be telling you about a couple of those classic Dutch pastries and desserts, their flavor and texture, as well as how they are made. So the first classic Dutch pastry I want to talk about is stroopwafels, which literally translates to syrup waffles. This specific pastry may be the most well-known Dutch pastries outside of the Netherlands itself, as it is quite popular in many other countries, including here in the US. Stroopwafels are sandwich cookies or wafers, if you will, made from two very thin layers of dough filled with a sweet, gooey filling. Traditionally, this filling is either caramel or honey. However, I have recently seen some new adaptations which have other types of fillings, such as chocolate. The texture of this pastry is usually crisp on the outside and chewy on the inside. It's best served warm, especially if made fresh. One of my favorite things to do when in the Netherlands is go to one of their stroopwafel stands or food trucks and have a fresh one, which is then made right in front of you. It's amazing. So now a little about how it's made. The dough or the weight of the wafer or pastry is made using fresh yeast, milk, high quality butter, sugar, eggs, and cake flour. And the filling, depending on the type of filling, is either high quality honey or caramel made using sugar, cream, and butter. The dough is first made, set aside to rise, and then rolled into 1-inch balls, as you can see here on the picture. 2 of these balls are then pressed one at a time in this special stroopwafel iron. And then after, once they're pressed and cooked, they're filled with the warm, gooey filling. And that then is the final stroopwafel most of us know and love. Next slide, please. So the next classic Dutch pastry I would like to talk about is a little less known outside of the Netherlands. However, it is very popular there as well as in Suriname. This is a family favorite of mine, and it is called amandelkoek or gevulde koek. This literally translates to almond cake or cookie, or filled cake or cookie, as koek can mean cookie or cake. Gevulde koek is almost comparable to a hand pie, as we know here in the US, as it is a pastry dough or pâte sucrée filled with almond paste or marzipan. These are crisp on the outside and again, soft, sweet, and flavorful on the inside. They are also best served fresh, which is most commonly found at either a Dutch bakery or a grocery store in the Netherlands. So how it's made, the pastry dough is made with butter, sugar, all-purpose flour, vanilla extract or lemon zest, baking powder, salt, and eggs. It is then rolled out and cut into its classic shape, as you can see here. And then it's filled with the almond paste, as you can see there. With not legitimate places, but with bakeries who make everything from scratch, they also make their own almond paste or marzipan, which is then, of course, the best. Once shaped and ready, it is egg washed, topped with a whole almond, and baked until golden brown. It is, again, absolutely delicious. So next slide, please. So the final classic Dutch pastry or dessert I will be telling you about are pannenkoeken and poffertjes. Pannenkoeken and poffertjes are thin pancakes. No, pannenkoeken are thin pancakes, very similar to French crepes, often served rolled up with cinnamon sugar, apple syrup, or sweet molasses. They are served for either breakfast or they're served as a dessert. Poffertjes, on the other hand, are mini pannenkoeken, if you will, made in a special Dutch poffertjes pan. They are traditionally served warm with powdered sugar and high quality butter, as you can see here in the picture. So how it's made. Pannenkoeken and poffertjes are both made using the same ingredients, as it is the same batter, just baked or fried differently. They're made using eggs, sugar, milk, butter, flour, and salt. And for pannenkoeken, the batter is poured onto a special flat round pan, like a crepe pan, spread out thinly and then fried until cooked through. For poffertjes, the batter is poured into the individual small poffertjes molds in the pan and fried until cooked through also. Making poffertjes does take practice though, as they are very small molds, but it is very rewarding once you get them right. So these were only some of the many delicious classic Dutch pastries the Netherlands has to offer. However, it is all we'll be talking about today. I do have some honorable mentions, as I could not talk about Dutch food without at least highlighting these two dishes. Though they are neither pastries or desserts, they are a Dutch staple and something you should definitely try when you visit the Netherlands. The dishes I'm talking about are kalfskroketten and bitterballen. Kroketten are very similar to what many of we know here as croquetas. However, they are much larger, almost 4 times the size, and often softer, more liquidy on the inside. They are amazing when served hot with mustard. The traditional condiment they use for these are mustard. Bitterballen are similar to kroketten. Well, they're the same dough, but they are shaped as balls rather than logs. They're much smaller and they're a bit more solid on the inside. They're often served as either a snack or street food or an appetizer at a restaurant. So I really hope you enjoyed this information and learned a little bit more about the Dutch pastries and food that the Netherlands has to offer. And I hope you try it the next time you visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Next, we're going to be learning a lot about cheese. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Katrina Van Wees, who at the time was an American tourist, met and married a local farmer, and now has been living in the Netherlands for 26 years. So I'm going to stop the sharing so we can see. Did it stop the sharing? No, I can't do this. Oh, I need to. Did it stop? I can't see it. No. No, okay. Which do I need?
The red button down here, red, yep.
Okay. And I'd like to introduce Katrina. Katrina, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Shall I start?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, now, hello everybody. My name is Katrina Van Wees and I am the farmer's wife here at the Clara Maria. This farm has been in the family for 4 generations, including our children. My husband and his father and their brothers and sisters were all born right here on the farm. Now, the farm was originally built by an aristocratic family in the mid-1800s. After the first couple of generations, they ran out of sons and the daughters did not run the farms back then. So the farm eventually came into my husband's family. My husband's grandfather sort of managed or leased the farm, and then my husband's father actually bought the farm. I came here as a tourist about 28 years ago and came back and forth several times, fell in love with the farmer and married him. So that's how I got to be here. As we planned on getting married, he told me that it was no coincidence that he should marry an American. I thought that was an odd thing for a Dutch farmer to say. I asked him why, and with a smirk on his face, he told me that it was because he was busy with a crossbreeding project. Now, I found that a bit of an odd thing to say. I thought he needed to explain it. He did. He told me that he had been busy crossbreeding the Dutch Friesian dairy cows with the American Holstein dairy cows, and he really liked the blend. Okay, so he teases our children that they are the same breed as his cows. As you can imagine, the children refused to speak with him on the topic. Now, the Cows get milk twice a day, 5:30 in the evening, 5:30 in the morning. The milk goes directly from the milk stall. In fact, my husband's milking the cows right now. It goes through these pipes and it'll come down into the tub. The tubs are insulated, so we keep the milk cold at night. And then in the morning, we warm it up to 84 degrees, so it's just lukewarm. At that point, then we have the cheese culture to the milk. Cheese culture is simply a collection of milk bacteria. The different collections of milk bacteria lend the different flavors to the cheese. On this farm, we make traditional Gouda cheese. So that's the flavor of this bacteria. That will go into the milk. We'll follow that up with an enzyme called rennet. We use a vegetarian rennet. It will break or separate the milk. So milk is solid and liquid. We need the solid part, that is the fat and the protein that's in the milk. So that goes in. We wait 30 minutes. When we come back, it looks like we got a tub full of yogurt. Just congeals and gets thick. But of course, we're not making yogurt, we're making cheese. So we set 3 knives onto the 3 arms. There's a sharp side and there's a dull side. Depending upon which direction we're moving the knives, we can either cut or we can stir. We start on the cutting side. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes of slowly slicing through that mass, and we get this. Now, I don't know if y'all recognize what this is, but if you remember the Mother Goose nursery rhyme, Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet eating her curds and whey, this is what that poor child was eating. I can't imagine my children eating it. The curds are those little white bits in there. That's the fat and the protein bonded onto each other. It's only 12% of all the milk. The other 88% is the whey or the liquid. We don't need that part, so we drain almost all of it off. Our calves love it. It goes to them. The curds fall to the bottom of the tub. They are still very, very slimy. They're still very wet, and we need to get rid of more of that whey that's in them. In order to do that, we add very hot water straight into the tub. As we're adding the hot water, we are spinning those knives around like crazy. It looks like wild water rafting is going on there. It's just very tumultuous. We keep adding the hot water until that whole mass gets up to about 94, 95 degrees Fahrenheit. It feels like nice, warm bath water. It makes cheese making a really nice thing to do. You're up to your elbows in that tub. It's very warm and it's very silky because the enzymes that are in the way, they make your skin all nice and soft. So cheese making is a really nice thing to do. Now, when we got it up to temperature, we immediately turn off the hot water. We don't want it to get too hot. If it gets too hot, we end up with dry, pasty cheese. That is not our goal. We want creamy cheese. So we have to pay attention to what we're doing. When we turned off the hot water, we slow down the speed of the knives. We let them now very slowly, gently rotate for another 15 to 25 minutes. And that time we're washing the curds and we're ripening the curds. So we're just literally washing more of the whey out. It leaches out of the curds. It goes into that fresh, warm water. It drags a good part of the lactose with it. Lactose is milk sugar. That makes milk taste good when you're drinking it. But when it mixes with the bacteria culture and the enzyme, it turns sour. Poor little Miss Muffet. We don't want sour cheese, so we're trying to wash some of that lactose out. Now, as those curds are releasing that liquid, they're of course crimping. They're solidifying. They're wanting to bond onto each other. As that is going along, we're taking handfuls, and we can open up our fist and those curds stay in a nice little formed ball. That's good. It means they're ripening as they ought to. We put our thumb in the middle of that ball and those little curds fall apart loosely, then we know the curds are ready to be made into cheese. They're ripe. We can stop. One day in the week or so, we make just plain natural Gouda cheese. The other days out of the week, we try to get a bit more creative. We add other things to it. So sometimes when you come in here, it will stink to high heaven in here. We are making one of 2 cheeses on that day. We are either making garlic and chive, which is delicious, or we are making truffle, which my husband will tell you is delicious. Based upon the smell, I will not touch it. Truffle is a love-or-hate relationship. People go completely crazy of it, or they will not have anything to do with it. It's a very particular cheese. Sometimes when you come in here, it'll smell like tacos all the way out to the parking lot. That's cumin cheese day. Cumin starts with a C. We had a group of American middle school students in here one day that I completely freaked out. They thought I was a cannibal. Cumin, not human, starts with a C. It is excellent grated over a chili con carne. Sometimes when you come in, it will smell like pizza or spaghetti sauce. Then we're making Italian herb cheese. It has sun-dried tomato, basil, garlic, red bell pepper, and black pepper. It's one of our favorite cheeses. Sometimes when you come in here, it'll smell just like Thanksgiving. Very savory. Then we're making Sweet Rosie, which has rosemary, thyme, onion, and garlic. And one day when I came walking in here, I looked through these glass windows and I saw my husband in here getting ready to make cheese, and he was crying. So I ran in to find out what was going on. And he had a great big can of jalapeno chilies in one arm, staff mixer in the other hand, and he was just grinding up these little chilies, and the guy was crying. Now, if you guys knew my husband at all, you'd know that he's kind of a manly man farmer, and he does not cry. And so I started laughing. What he was making was a special cheese that he was making for me. It has jalapenos in it, cayenne pepper, and dried red chilies, because I love Tex-Mex food. And I was very, very tickled with him making that cheese for me. He called it Farmer's Flame. I told him he got a long way making up for the crossbreeding thing with that special cheese. So we use it to make tacos and nachos. We use it for chicken enchiladas. We put it over eggs. If you're making fried eggs in the morning, fry the bacon, crack the eggs in there, put slices of the Farmer's Flame cheese over the top of it, and then we serve it with avocados and tomatoes. It's a really fun cheese to cook with. We make all sorts of different kinds of cheese. There's wild onion, there's ginger, there's stinging nettle, we've got lavender cheese, we've got spring onion cheese, there's beer cheese, there's whiskey cheese, there's all kinds of things you can put into cheese. Whatever you're putting in, put it in, mix it up, and then we're ready for arts and crafts. We take a lid, a sieve, and a holy bowl. We're just scooping the curds up, mounted up high, the lid will sit up here. Under the big presses, press the curds together, squeeze the whey and water out. In just a few minutes, it's a cheese. We flip them over so that both sides are uniformly round, back into the bowl, and then we put these certificates on them. Now, these certificates are required of all cheesemakers all over the EU. 4 points indicates raw milk cheese, usually made on farms. Perfectly circular certificates mean pasteurized milk cheese, usually made in factories. Label goes on, lid goes on, under the presses one more time, and that label will press right into the cheese, and it will look like that. Now, the beauty of these little certificates is that people can take these cheeses all over the world, travel with them internationally. Even people going to Canada, America, Australia, and New Zealand, the most difficult customs countries, these cheeses are legal to go into those countries. Now, from the presses, back over here, the cheeses travel over this side of the room, and they go into these salt baths. Now, the salt baths are 20% salt. To get a perspective on that, the oceans, you guys are all in Florida, the oceans are only about 3 inches. Quite a salt environment. There's 3 very important things.
Katrina, your sound is breaking up.
Sorry?
Your sound was breaking up. There was some noise. Now you sound better.
Oh. It could be the internet here. We're having a storm, so it could be some interference. You're hearing me okay now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. The second thing that the salt bath does is it draws out more liquid. So as that cheese is in the salt bath and that salt water is going through the cheese, it's pulling more of the whey out, which further solidifies the cheese and it seals the rind so that the cheese will be firmer. Otherwise, the cheese would just blubber out. And third function of the salt bath is just good old-fashioned preservation. Salt kills bacteria, which cures the cheese. We can keep those cheeses for years after that as they're going through their maturation process. Now, the cheeses, they stay in the salt bath from 1 to 3 days. That depends on if they're the little cheeses or the great big cheeses. Then they come out, they dry on the planks as these 2 cheeses are here. They're just drying. They'll go into the next room tomorrow. We just literally smear on 2 to 3 coats of liquid paraffin. It dries, and then the cheese looks like this. So this is very traditional cheese. Now, this paraffin, it protects the cheese from contaminants getting into it, but it's porous. It allows the cheese to sweat. So it releases a little bit of whey, a little bit of fat. It becomes more concentrated. Through that concentration, it becomes sharper in flavor. So the older a cheese is, the stronger in flavor it will be, but also the smaller and the harder it will become. So take a look at that. This cheese is just a couple of days old. This cheese is a few weeks old. This is considered a young cheese. It's easy to slice. It's mild in flavor. This cheese is a few months old. This is a medium flavored cheese, firmer in texture, stronger in flavor. And this cheese, this one is a few years old. Believe it or not, this one is still edible. But we use this one just like a Parmesan cheese. So if I'm making soup, salad, pizza, pasta, anything along those lines, instead of going to the store and buying Parmesan, I'll just use one of our old Goudas. So I put it on a cutting board. I use a big butcher knife. Ladies, you stand on your toes, gives you more leverage with your shoulders. and you just bear straight down through that cheese and you'll get a nice open surface on it. Now, if you can see in here, you see all these little white crystals. So as the cheese is dehydrating, the salt crystallizes. It's called kristalkaas, which is a specialty here in Holland. If I'm making soup, salad, pizza, pasta, anything that the kids would put a Parmesan cheese on, put an old Gouda cheese on the table with these graters. Our kids like these graters because they're using it in their hand. Scrape the back of the fingers with it like on a big silver grater. And they just pass it around the table. Everybody scrapes however much they want, pass it around. Everybody gets a whack at it. We just put cling film over the cut edge and put it into the.
And you think your signal went out again. Could you, you're kind of being muffled.
I'm sorry?
Now it
The
sounds better.
signal's bad, but
The signal's bad. I'm sorry.
Now it's better. Now it's better. It sounds.
It's better now? Okay. Now, with the young cheeses, when the cheeses are sealed in their wax like this, they do not have to be refrigerated, which is what allows us to be able to ship the cheeses all over the world. We just vacuum pack them like this, and they're good to go. So when you would get a cheese in a package, you just cut it out, wipe it off. They're going to be a little bit sweaty, and put it on a wooden cutting board. Turn them over every other day, wipe them off with a paper towel. They sweat, you want to keep it dry. When you're ready to eat it, you're going to cut a little bit off the side, it's opening the cheese, and then you just go right around the edge and you take off just a little bit of the wax all the way around. You don't want to eat the wax. It doesn't taste good. Start at the top of the cheese, you pull straight back towards yourself, and you'll get a nice, long, thin slice of cheese. So we use these for sandwiches, snacks, wrap them around a pickle. The Dutch eat cheese all day long. Our kids, they like to make snacks when they come home from school. So they'll do make nachos, come home from school, take a plate, put tortilla chips on the plate, and they'll take that Farmer's Flame cheese with the chilies in it or the cumin cheese and just grate young cheese right over the top of the tortilla chips, pop it in the microwave, and they've got nachos in just a few minutes after school. So these wonderful Dutch utensils are really easy for making snacks. Again, when we're finished with the cheese, we just put cling film over the cut edge and we put them back in the refrigerator again. If you ever see any mold on your cheese, do not throw your cheese away. Your cheese is perfectly fine. Remove the mold. You just cut it off, throw it away. If you get mold on the outside part, you take a paper towel with a little vinegar on it, wipe it off, dry it off. Cheese is good to go. Don't throw cheese away because of mold. Now, do you have any questions for me?
Yes, so now we're going to start asking some questions, and if people have questions, they can add to the chat. Can you tell us how close you are to Amsterdam and how people get to your farm?
Yeah, we are, depending on which part of Amsterdam you're from, if it's Amsterdam South, then we're about 15 or 20 minutes away. To really get down to Central Station, we're probably about a half hour away. People come to us with cars, with the bus, with the trams. Public transportation goes right by us. So it's very easy to get to us. We are about 15 or 20 minutes away from Schiphol, the large international airport. And we're about a half hour, 25 minutes, a half hour away from Kokenhof, where the large tulip gardens are.
And how much does it cost for people to go on a tour of your farm?
At our farm, we do not charge for a tour. People are welcome to come in and visit us. We can do an explanation for them. They can taste cheese. They go into our shop. We usually make our money through people shopping in the shop, buying cheese, clogs, souvenirs. So we do not charge a fee.
And if people want to get your cheese, do you ship to the United States?
We do, and we have a web shop. So people can still shop for our cheese through our web shop. They can also email us, and they can just pay through PayPal or through Molly. We do ship to the States. We ship all over the world. The only places where we found where we have difficulty shopping is to Asia, or for shipping is to Asian countries. And for one reason or another, they really hold the cheese up in customs for a long time. And I mean, we're talking about weeks holding it up in customs, and that's problematic in warm tropical countries. But through all of the, most of the Western countries, the Arab countries, we've not had that problem. So we ship it all over the place.
someone else is asking, are Holland and the Netherlands the same place?
Holland and Netherlands are the same place. I think that Holland is a colloquialism. North Holland and South Holland are two provinces within the country of the Netherlands, but most people just loosely call the Netherlands Holland.
And Christina, do you want to add some questions?
Somebody else put in the chat, how can we purchase from you? We're gonna put the website so you can.
Yeah, it's on the website. Our web shop is built right into our website. So it's basically just www.claramaria.nl.
And we will be posting that. We will be posting that at the end.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Can you tell us a little bit about the clogs that you sell there and the history behind it?
Yeah, the clogs. In fact, we can walk in there and my daughter can film it. If you'd like to see it, you're welcome to come take a look.
The signal will probably be really bad here though.
Okay, so the lights are on. If you can see this, and my daughter will walk over so you can also see where the machines are. So let me see here. You can see the machines. With this machine, we would put a piece of wood into this machine. Oops. And the machines would go on. I'm not going to turn it on because that would be dangerous, but that machine would turn on and then you would end up getting a shoe that would be like this, except it would be, it's closed like this. So it would come out from this wood. It would come out looking like this using this mold. If you can see this in here, it's just a copy machine actually. And then my husband would take this clog and he would put it up here by our minion. It would go in there, and then there are blades on this. It would follow this mold. This would get carved out, and as that got carved out, it would end up looking like this one. If I take everything out of here, it would look like this. So then what we do with this is when these are done, he cuts off this foot, and then they're hung up to dry. So if you see this long string of shoes, these are hung up to dry. They need to dry for about 6 weeks, and then they're ready to be sanded and to be painted. So they go from looking like a very rough shoe like this, but after a few minutes of sanding, they'll be nice and smooth like this. And it also, we've got machines that also sand out the inside of it. The sanding machines, they look like this, except out in our shed, we've got great big, huge ones. And they've also got, he has a whole line of them that also do the interior part of the shoe. The shoes, the wood that's used is either poplar or willow. And that's because they are the softest of the hardwoods. So they're lighter in material and they're more comfortable in the footbed. The beauty of wooden shoes is that they breathe. So you don't get sweaty feet, and they're very, very comfortable on the inside. They have a good orthopedic footbed in them. Do you have any questions about those?
Could you explain why clogs were developed? What their original purpose was? Why the Dutch developed them?
Now, what it was actually all over Europe and also in Asia, wooden clogs were a very typical shoe to use to wear because they were affordable and wood was handy. It was hundreds and hundreds of years ago, it was very expensive to have a cobbler make leather shoes for a family. Holland is, the country is anywhere from half the country to 2/3 of the country is actually under sea level, which means that Holland is a very marshy country. So consider hundreds and hundreds of years ago, it was not practical to wear leather shoes over most of the country. It was very agrarian. It was very wet ground. Wood is buoyant. It stays up above the muck. Whereas if you're wearing leather, then that's going to go down into the leather and into the mud, and the shoes are going to get ruined. And that was expensive. Holland was not a country that had a lot of money hundreds and hundreds of years ago before the golden era. So they could go out and they could cut a branch off a tree and they could make shoes for the whole family. So you usually had a couple cobblers or clog makers in the villages, and they would make shoes for the village. They were cheap. And the Dutch wore those shoes, I think, really right up until shortly after World War II. And the influence of America, Canada became very strong, and they just moved over into shoes rather than clogs. They just modernized, basically. These days, about the only people that wear the wooden clogs are construction workers and farmers, and they really do still wear wooden shoes. you have other questions?
Christina, you had a question?
Okay, so my other question was, can you mention the events that you hold at the farm?
Oh, all the different things that we do. We do all sorts of different things here on the farm. So we do tours. So we have the bus tours that come through, and they'll come first into we might have, a bus full of 40 to 50 people, and they come into this clog room. And my husband or one of our clog makers will make clogs for them, and they'll tell them the history of clogs. They'll move into the cheese making room. I'll do the cheese explanation. They'll go through and taste cheese, and then they'll go into the shop and go shopping. They get back on the bus, and then they go on with the rest of their tour of Holland. We also do educational school excursions where a school class will come in and they will have an explanation of cheese making, and then they'll split into 3 groups. One group will make cheese, one group will go into the shop and they will learn how to wax the cheese, how to care for the cheese, and the other group will go out into the barn. They'll feed the animals, feed the calves, and they'll go play in the hay. We have a big hay barn with tunnels and big bales. And then every 20 minutes or so, they switch through those groups. So those are educational school tours. We do cheese making workshops where people come in and they have a tour, they make cheese with us, and then they have coffee and apple pie. We have, during Kokenhof, when it's not Corona time, we have groups that come in for breakfast, or we have groups that come in for lunch as part of a tour that they're doing. We do corporate excursions. We have scouting groups that come. We used to do not the wedding ceremony itself, but wedding receptions. There's just a myriad of different things. We used to play this game called Farmers Golf, and I'm looking to see if I can find one of the clubs here. I don't see one right off the bat, but it's like a broomstick with a clog on the end of it, and then we use a ball that's like a soccer ball, but it's a little bit smaller. And then we have buckets that are set out into the ground in the pastures, and they go out and they play farmers golf. So they'll hit the ball. It's kind of like a cross between golf and croquet. And they play it all through the pastures between the cows. Cows are out there. They've got buckets that are over the canals that are out in the field. So they'll have to jump or walk across wooden planks over the canals in order to play this game. So there's all sorts of different things we do here on the farm.
Thank you.
So
I just
seems
want to
like a very
if they can submit, if they have any questions, to put them into the chat. We have one right now. This seems like a very labor-intensive business. Do you foresee this staying as a family business for the future? And also, while you're answering that, maybe you can also talk about the impact COVID has had in the last year there as well.
Okay. If I forget the second part, remind me again. The first part, labor-intensive. When we are not in our Corona time, this is a 7-day job. My husband gets out of bed at 5:30 in the morning to start milking the cows. When we're having tours here, we can still be having tour buses arrive anywhere between 5 and 6 in the evening if they've had problems getting in, if they're late. So we might still be with a bus group until 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the evening. Then my husband still has to milk the cows, and then we eat dinner. So we might be eating dinner somewhere between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night during high season. So that's in the spring and the summer. Which answers the second question. We have 4 children, and no, none of them want to carry on. So they're all busy getting their university education, studying, and they've decided that they can probably do well for themselves, not working 7 days a week, 12 to 15 hours a day. As much fun as it is. It is a lot of fun. We do really enjoy what we do. It is very labor intensive. Very, very labor intensive. But my husband and I are both people, and we do enjoy what we're doing. The children help us out. All 4 of them have helped us out all the way through their university educations. But the oldest 2 are now 33 and 31 years old. I was previously married. I brought them over to Holland with me. They were 5 and 7 when we got here. They loved it. They were a great help, but they've moved on. The youngest 2 children are 20 and 22, and they're studying right now. We're still working on brainwashing the 20-year-old. We don't know how far we're getting along on that. The Corona crisis is a crisis for us. We are an agro-tourism business. Literally, our tourism business pays for the cost of the farm. So I think also with small farms in America, as you're familiar, small farms in America don't have high incomes. Ours does not either. That's why my parents-in-law started the tourism business, was actually to be able to keep the farm. And so when we're having tourism, we do very well financially. When tourism stopped, it's just your income just stops. And I think that you're going through the same thing in America. So that's been rather a crisis. What we've done to try to manage that is we stopped making cheese 6 days a week. We make cheese about 2 times a week now, enough to keep up with our local demand and our web shop demand. And the rest of the milk gets sold to the milk factory. So we have a source of income coming in. But that source of income does not compare to the source of income that we have coming in with tourism. So it's been quite a drastic change. Thank God, every month between the money that we are able to make and the government support that comes in, Europe has been very generous with their businesses with governmental support. So we literally every month have been making it just over every month. So we're feeling very, very thankful that we are getting through this. It is not with a large margin.
Katrina, thank you very much for sharing. We're going to put up as we end the slide that has your contact information so people can order that. Let me just share that.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And please, you know, if anybody wishes to order, you know, go to the website. You can get some cheese ordered there, and you can, you know, really have a chance to, you know, appreciate from what it tastes like and have it shipped directly to you. I know already one person has already told me that they have ordered some cheese from you, and we're really excited. And we really, again, we thank you very much for your time, and for both for you, Katrina, also Dana, everybody for contributing to our presentation today. And we do encourage you, once things reopen, to definitely visit the Netherlands. As you could see, there's a lot we could do. We could not cover everything in the Netherlands or even one city in an hour presentation. But there's definitely a lot of stuff. It's not a large country, but there's a lot packed into it. And as you can see, even from Amsterdam, within a half hour, you could be out on a cheese farm and learn how cheese is made and purchase some fresh. So thank you very much. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much, and good luck.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you.
And Dana.
Thank you.
How do I stop the share? Did it stop the share? Thank you, everyone. Do I...